So today we're diving into something kind of different. We're talking extraterrestrial life, but not the typical image that pops into your head.
Right, right. Not little green men this time.
Yeah, exactly. We're going way beyond that. We're talking about plasmas and how they might help us understand how life even began.
It's all based on this fascinating research paper, Extraterrestrial Life in the Thermosphere. Plasmas, UAP, pre-life, fourth state of matter. A mouthful, I know. Basically, it looks at the idea that what we call UAPs, those unidentified aerial phenomena, to actually be a really early form of life, like pre-life, existing up in the thermosphere.
And the wildest part is that this is based on real NASA footage from space shuttle missions. 10 of them, actually.
Yeah, the astronauts weren't even looking for this stuff, which makes
Yeah.
it even more interesting. Imagine you're up in space, looking out at the Earth, and you see these huge glowing things moving around.
Okay, hold on. Huge how? What exactly were they seeing?
They're calling them plasmas, and they saw all sorts of shapes. Cones, some that looked like clouds, even some shaped like donuts. And get this, they often had a bright spot in the middle like a nucleus, or sometimes a dark void. And we're not talking tiny specks here. Some of these plasmas were almost a kilometer across, like 10 football fields long.
Whoa, okay. Those would definitely catch your eye. But why think these plasmas are anything more than just, electrified gas?
It all comes down to how they behave. They don't just drift around randomly. These things change speed and direction super fast, and sometimes they even seem to, target each other and pass right through, leaving a trail of what looks like dust behind them.
That's wild. Nothing like how space debris usually acts. Almost sounds like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what caught the researchers' attention. They even used the term hunter-predatory to describe some of the footage. One plasma appears to chase down another one and pierce right through it, sometimes even several in a row. Definitely not something you'd expect from something like ice crystals or normal atmospheric stuff.
Okay, but how do we jump from seeing weird movements to saying these plasmas could be a form of pre-life? Seems like a big leap.
Oh, it's a big claim for sure, and even the researchers say it's still a theory, but they point to a few things. First, space isn't a completely sterile environment. We found organic molecules, the basic ingredients for life, all over space.
So are you saying these plasmas might be interacting with those molecules?
Could be, and that's what makes it so intriguing. They suggest that these plasmas, with their electric and magnetic fields, could act as a gathering place for those molecules, maybe even creating the perfect conditions for them to start reacting with each other.
So like a primordial plasma soup, instead of the primordial soup we always hear about on early Earth.
Exactly. And remember those dusty plasmas we mentioned, the ones leaving those trails?
Hey, like cosmic vapor trails, right?
Right. Well, they've been known to do even weirder things than regular plasmas.
Yeah.
In labs, they've been seen forming specific shapes, pulsating in unique patterns, even doing things that look like communication or exchanging energy between them.
Wait, hold on. Communication between plasmas. How?
It does sound kind of crazy, but it's a hot area of research in plasma physics. And if we can see it in a lab, who's to say it's not happening out in space?
So we have these plasmas, maybe full of organic molecules, maybe talking to each other, moving with purpose. Makes you wonder if we've been looking for life in all the wrong places. Or maybe our whole definition of life needs a serious upgrade.
And that's the heart of this research paper. These scientists aren't just saying these plasmas are interesting. They think they could be something that comes before life as we know it, before DNA and RNA even existed. They call it pre-life.
A free life. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
But before we go any further with this whole pre-life thing, let's talk about something that happened on one of those space shuttle missions that really caught the researchers' eye.
You mean the STS-75 mission with that tethered satellite, the TSS-1R?
Yeah, the one they basically flew on a giant space leash.
That's the one. And what happened during that mission adds a huge piece to the puzzle when we're trying to understand these plasmas and how they react to energy sources.
Yeah.
So the TSS-1R, it was designed to do these experiments with electromagnetic fields. And while they were letting it out, the cameras, they caught something really strange.
Hundreds of those plasmas, all heading straight for that satellite on a leash.
Exactly. Like they were attracted to it, almost like moths to a light, but instead of light, it's an invisible electromagnetic field.
Okay, so that kind of seals the deal that these things aren't just floating around willy-nilly. They're attracted to energy, and not just any energy, the kind we use right here.
Yeah, and think about it. We're talking about a layer of the atmosphere that's bombarded with energy from the sun constantly. Plus, it's interacting with Earth's magnetic field. It's chaotic up there. And these plasmas, they seem to be using that energy somehow, but we just don't get it yet.
All right, I gotta ask. If these things are drawn to energy, could they be behind some of those UFO sightings people report? The ones we can't explain.
It's funny you should ask, because the researchers actually addressed that in the paper. They think at least some UFO sightings, those UAPs, could be these plasmas getting pulled down from the thermosphere by energy sources here on Earth.
So people see glowing orbs near power plants or weird lights in the sky during thunderstorms? That could be these energy-hungry plasmas. Huh. Makes you wonder how many UFO sightings might just be, well, atmospheric stuff.
Could be a lot of them. And that's where those Foo Fighter stories get really interesting.
Maybe ones from World War II with the glowing spheres and disks following planes?
Yep, those descriptions. They often sound exactly like the plasmas in that NASA footage. And a lot of those Foo Fighter sightings, they happen near where the military was doing its thing, places with a ton of electromagnetic energy.
So it's like these plasmas are drawn to our technology, our energy, maybe even trying to tell us something, but we just don't speak the language.
Now, wouldn't that be something? But let's pump the brakes for a second and unpack this whole pre-life idea. It really makes you rethink what we think of as life in the first place.
Right, because most of us, we think life, we think DNA, cells, that whole reproduction thing.
Exactly. But the researchers are saying these plasmas might be something that came before all that, a step on the way to life as we know it,
Right.
even without DNA or cells. They're showing us something that acts alive, that moves with purpose, and even maybe talks to each other.
Right, like you were saying, they move with intention, they might communicate, maybe even replicate in a way, with one plasma going through another one and leaving a piece of itself behind, like they're playing by a whole different set of rules.
And here's where those organic molecules in space come back in. If these plasmas are collecting them, maybe even creating environments where they can mix and mingle, what if these plasmas aren't just pre-life? What if they're like little nurseries for life itself?
Instead of life starting in that primordial soup on Earth, it came to us, all ready to go from these plasma things.
That's the theory. Obviously, we need a lot more research, but think about what it means. If something as weird as plasmas can do all this, then life could be way more common than we thought and way stranger. It could be everywhere, in ways we never even imagined.
It's mind-blowing, really. But let's get down to Earth here. If these scientists are onto something, what do we do? What's next?
Well, the scientists are pretty clear about what we got to do next. We can't just sit back and watch these plasmas anymore. We need to actually go after them.
So, like a dedicated mission?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Uh-huh.
They're even talking about a satellite designed specifically to study them.
Okay, now we're talking. Equipped to actually analyze those electromagnetic fields, get a closer look at the dust trails, maybe even catch one. Imagine what we could learn if we got our hands on a real-life plasma.
It would be groundbreaking, no doubt. But it's not just about looking out into space either. They say we need to study similar stuff happening right here on Earth, too.
You mean like those weird lights they always see in Hestel in Norway?
Exactly. And places like Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Fukushima. There are reports of strange lights in those places, too, and they often look a lot like the plasmas they're seeing in space. The researchers think those spots could hold valuable clues about how plasmas work.
So we need to be paying attention both up there and down here. Makes sense. But for those of us who aren't astronauts or plasma scientists, what's the takeaway here? What can we learn from all this, even if all we're doing is looking up at the stars?
For me, it's a big reminder that we don't know everything about the universe, not even close. It's like a slap in the face saying, hey, be more open-minded. What we think of as life, it might be way more than that. It could be hiding in plain sight, and we wouldn't even recognize it.
It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget how much we don't know. This research, it reminds us there are still mysteries out there, and some of them are closer than we think.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe someday, thanks to research like this, we'll look back and realize those weird lights in the sky weren't just something cool to look at. They were a sign, a clue to a whole new understanding of life itself. A form of life so different, so bizarre, that it was hidden right in front of us the whole time.
That's what makes science so amazing, right? Every answer just leads to more questions, a whole new path to explore. This plasma pre-life thing, it's just one example of how much is still out there. So yeah, next time you're looking up at the night sky, think about those plasmas dancing around up there. They could be the key to life as we know it. It's mind-blowing when you really think about it. Keep looking up and keep those questions coming. The universe is full of surprises.